Last week, Amrachandra started this series on symbols of the Tantric path, the Vajrayana, later developments in Buddhism. And she was telling us about some Buddha forms, some Buddha rupas, and referencing the 5 Buddha mandala, an arrangement of 5 colourful Buddhas, which appeared maybe between 500 and 1,000 years after the time of the Buddha. And I'm going to sort of follow on that theme by talking about colour and about mantra, and both colour and mantra are aspects of our engagement with those 5 Buddhas of the mandala. And you see I've got some pictures here, and I'll get some of those out a little bit later. So I'm going to be talking about symbolism of colour and mantra, although Sangharakshita, he gave a talk in the 1970s which he called creative symbols of the Tantra, and this particular talk was symbolism of colour and mantric sound. So I'm going to be taking a lot of my material from what Sangharakshita had to say in the 1970s. So that's over 50 years ago now this particular talk was given, but it's still perfectly relevant to us in this day and age. So we're looking at symbolism and images, symbols. So what we're doing here, we're entering the world of things which don't have fully prescribed or described meaning. This is what a symbol is. You can't totally pin a symbol down. It's sort of suggestive about something. In our case today, something suggestive about the nature of awakening, the nature of enlightenment. And Sangharakshita also made a very good point that it's through symbols that we may get a better feel for what truth is being pointed at in the Buddhist path, because using symbols, we're inviting our imagination and our emotions to start to be active in a way that if we're just involved with concepts and ideas, they may not get much of a look in. So often it's symbols which can give us a bit of a better doorway into spiritual truth. And that's what we're going to be talking a bit about today. Now, Vajrayana Buddhism recognizes that everything has color. So things in Vajrayana and in the Tantra, I'm using those words a little bit. What one equals the other. It probably is not strictly true, because I'm no great historic scholar. But anyway, we'll talk about Tantra and Vajrayana as being much the same thing, at least for our purposes today. And they in that particular school of Buddhism, they really take colour very seriously. So everything has colour, not just the deities, the archetypal images, the mythic Buddhas. They have colours which are very important, and we'll look at that in a minute. But they regard everything as having colour, and this sort of gives maybe the experience of things a bit more luster. And I just, to prepare for this talk, I've been engaging with colour quite strongly and sort of looking at things and noticing the colour in a way which I maybe wouldn't normally do. And I really did find that started to bring a more heartfelt response to my experience. So I'm getting a stronger sense now that colour is actually quite significant in relating to how you respond to our experience. And maybe one thing about colour is if we really focus on colour, we can notice things as being a bit more fascinating and a bit more appealing, but by making them more colourful. And Sangharakshita says something in a seminar, and I'm quoting him here. He says, the aspect of colour is very important. If you have to choose between thinking of reality as colourful or colourless, it is better to think of reality or awakening, enlightenment, as red or blue or green than to think of it as a completely colourless thing, at least for most people. That is why a picture, a tanka, can perhaps give you a better idea of what Buddhahood or reality is really like than can an abstract definition which makes use purely of concepts. because a concept or an abstract idea is not very inspiring for most people. And unless you are inspired, you can't move, you can't make progress in the spiritual life. So he's making a play there for the importance of colour and seeing awakening, different aspects of awakening as being colourful. So that's what we're aiming to try and bring alive today. Is, well, one of the things I'm trying to do is to raise the profile of colour, particularly in relation to well, but they're probably most relevant when we're looking. We've got some pictures here, noticing that particular mythic Buddha figures and Bodhisattva figures have colour. And this may make them, in certain instances, more appealing and more fascinating. We're not going to be fascinated by every single figure, maybe only by a few, but the colour of those might be quite relevant to our response to them. So what I'm going to do for the next little while, we're going to be looking at the associations that we have and what Vajrayana Buddhism has in relation to different colours. So I'm going to ask for a bit of response from the floor today. So the first thing we're going to look at is the colour red. So what do we associate with the colour red? Don't be shy. Desire, passion, something like that. Yeah. Anything else? Blood and life. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Danger. Oh, that's an interesting one. Yes, that's a very. Yeah, I hadn't written that down, but thanks very much. Yeah. Anger would have a certain kind of heat to it. Yeah. Fire. Yeah, fire.
If you're Chinese, luck.
Say again.
If you're Chinese, luck.
Really? No, that I was not aware of. So there are a lot of associations with the colour red, as we can see. And so we might, if somebody's has a card with a heart on it, that's normally red. I can't remember seeing it any other colour other than red. So it may relate to what we might loosely call love or the heart. That would seem to be relevant to the colour red. Blood, as we said, life, warmth, fire, heat. So I think we're talking about red as being quite a warm colour. It's an emotionally warm colour. That's how we might normally think of it. But now I'm going to say a bit about how the Tantra, the Vajrayana, talks about it. And it relates the colour red, particularly to what it calls Maha Raga. So you probably haven't the faintest idea what that means, and I wouldn't have done unless I'd read a bit about it. So this refers to Raga means passion, and Maha literally means great, but in the context of Vajrayana Buddhism, this means something which partakes of the nature of reality. So Raga is passion, and Maha means related to, or something which relates or partakes of the nature of reality. So you might talk about here Maha Raga as passion, while losing nothing of its emotionality, is purified by the experience of reality. And I'll get my first picture out. I'm going to totally trash this shrine. I'm going to be putting loads of pictures up on this shrine, but hopefully it won't fall down in a heap. It does. There we are. So there's one of the very well-known mythic Buddha figures.
They're on the other side.
Well, we'll probably get more. Oh, I see. We'll get more pictures. Is that all right?
Okay, I think that hopefully that'll stay where it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's Buddha Amitabha, and he's one of the figures which I think Amarachandra spoke about last week. So he's the red Buddha, and he's very much related to this transcendental passions, of like the well, what Sanghatchta calls a sort of uninterrupted stream of powerful, positive feeling that flows spontaneously from the very heart of the enlightenment experience in the direction of all living beings. So that's what Sanghatchta says about Maharaga. I quite like that. So Amitabha here, so he relates to love and compassion, hence to Maharaga, this transcendental passion. And he's a very, very popular figure in the Buddhist tradition. There are some Pure Land schools which take him very, very seriously indeed. He's the center of certain traditions. And what was I found interesting over the last week, I was spending a bit of time engaging with Buddha Amitabha. And what I noticed was that once I'd spent a bit of time engaging with him in meditation, that the colours of things came really important. I was really drawn to the colours of things while I was in the presence, you could say, of Buddha Amitabha. So that gave me a bit of a clue about something I didn't quite know before, about the importance of colour in relation to things. So that's the colour red. Then yellow, colour yellow. So what associations do we have with the colour yellow?
Sunshine or the sun.
Sunshine, absolutely, yes. Yes, it's the colour of sunshine.
Warm. Warm.
Well, possibly. It's your own person, your own association. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
It is quite a warm colour. I agree. It's quite a warm colour. Yes.
Oh,
golden.
gold.
Gold. So gold. So riches might be an association with yellow. And
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm half deaf, so I'm not going to get everything what people say.
Liver failure.
Liver failure. That didn't find its way into the Buddhist tradition, I have to say. Maybe it should have done.
Generosity.
Generosity, yes, absolutely. A generosity and abundance. This time of year, I mean, autumn has a kind of a yellow look to it. Looking at the leaves on the trees, very, very beautiful actually. And yes, so I think yeah, this time of year, well, it's probably a bit late for harvest, but if it was going back a month or two, we'd have harvest, and that has a kind of a yellow colour to it, sort of like the ripened grain has something of a yellow colour. But in association with that, we sort of got the idea of abundance of goodies, or at least coming from nature. And we might relate that spiritually to abundance of good qualities. So we might relate yellow to being related to riches, and also the colour of what, this is how apparently how the Vajrayana talks about it, is colour of yellow relates to what is rare and precious. Gold, what is gold and golden might be seen as rare and precious. So yellow represents the inexhaustible riches of the enlightened mind, and the incessant productivity and creativity that is showered over all beings. And in the 5 Buddha Mandala, we have the jewel ball Ratnasambhava, who relates to abundance of qualities. Now we've got a colour of a yellow figure here. Whether he's Ratnasambhava, I'm not entirely sure. Showing my ignorance, but there's a yellow figure anyway. Just to give the colour yellow a bit of a profile. So then moving on from a yellow, we'll go to the colour green. So what do we associate with the colour green?
Nature.
Nature, absolutely, nature, yeah. Hope. Interesting, I've not heard that one.
Vitality.
Well, I have to speak up a bit, I'm pretty deaf.
Vitality.
Say again?
Vitality.
Vitality. Yeah, there's what he's said to relate to action. So it's a bit close to that, but I don't know all the associations of colours, so yeah, I'll take your cue on that. So yes, so I think the idea of nature is a very important one, and with nature. And I remember they did a study, and I think they decided that having a blackboard at schools, having a blackboard which was sort of very dark green was the most restful and tranquil colour. So it seems to be that nature, the idea of nature, rest, tranquility, and repose. They're calm, absolutely calm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, seems to be very important in relation to the colour green. And if we're in a state of tranquility and repose, there's a sense of safety, there's a freedom from distress and danger, fear, worry and anxiety. So there's something about freedom there. And apparently the Vajrayana also relates it to the idea of refuge and having a sense of harmony, balance and equilibrium. And also there's a green Buddha, Amoga City, who I've not got a picture for, although I do have his consort. His consort is green Tara. So in the Five Buddha Manual, we've got the Buddha Amoga City, who relates to action and fearlessness. So he has a mudra looking like this, which relates to fearlessness. And apparently also green represents the aspects of the enlightened mind which harmonizes, balances, reconciles, and also relates to healing and the restorative aspect of the enlightened mind. So there's a little bit about the colour green. Now moving on to the colour blue. What about blue? What associations do we have with blue?
Aye.
Absolutely, that was the first one which came to my mind as well.
Water.
Water, a good one, yeah.
Expansiveness.
Yeah, so particularly in relation to the sky, yeah, that would seem to work. And an ocean is pretty expensive as well. Yeah.
Cold.
Cold, yes, yeah, blue with cold, yeah.
Vast.
Vast.
Fast, yes. Yes, so with blue, particularly with the image of the blue, deep blue sky, you've got related ideas of vastness, limitlessness, even infinity, and also freedom from obscurations or clouds. And we might also relate this deep blue to truth, kind of unclouded, unveiled truth. And we might also relate blue to the blue sky in the sense that it's there what remains when all the obscurations, all the transient things past. What you're left with is like a large expanse of blue. So this, we might relate that to the mind in its most essential nature, what's left when all the transient things have passed through. So we can relate the blue to what Sangharakshita called the unconditioned, what is outside of time. And also blue represents the enlightened mind itself, not to any particular aspect of it, but in its totality, in the enlightened mind. And often in visualization practices, we start by bringing to mind a blue sky, and things emerge out of the blue sky. And in meditation teaching, often we're invited to imagine the blue sky, imagine the mind as being like a blue sky. And this can be very effective in helping obscurations to fall away. And maybe part of that is due to this profound relationship between the blue sky and enlightenment itself, the enlightened mind, which is potential, which lies in the heart of all of us. Now moving on to colour white. So what do we associate?
You got the blue Buddha?
No. Did my best. I just I went through the all the pictures I could find upstairs and nothing blue.
Pointed.
Nothing blue. Yeah. So yeah, moving on to white. So so what do we relate to the colour white?
Purity.
Purity, absolutely, yeah.
Peace.
Peace, purity and peace. Snow.
Cold.
Cold, yes, it's cold, just like blue, yeah, but different. And
All the colours.
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes. So at the centre of the five of the mandala, we have the white Buddha Varochana, and his wisdom is said to be the conglomeration, the totality of the wisdoms of all the other Buddhas. So it's as if the white contains all other colours. All other colours can be refracted from the colour white. So white we might talk about as in terms of peace and purity, and we do have a white figure here, Bodhisattva, who is particularly related to purity. He's not part of the five Bodhisattva, but he's very important figure in Buddhism and Bodhisattva. So white apparently has also come to represent the calming, pacifying effect of the enlightened mind. It represents the enlightened mind as the allayer of all ills and the remover of all sorrow. So there are a good number of white figures in the Buddhist tradition: white Tara, Vajrasattva, to name just two. Then moving on to the colour black. So what do we relate to the colour black?
Night.
Night.
Death.
Death, yeah, death. We sort of imagine death as being somewhat black. Yeah. Fear. Could be, hadn't thought of that.
Evil.
Evil.
The dark side.
The dark side.
Space.
Space, yeah, probably not, yeah, quite dark, yeah. Yeah. And in the Tantra, in the Vajrayana tradition, they talk about spiritual death as, not surprisingly, being related to the color black. And so that means not physical death. It means death, you could say the death of ignorance, or at least the partial death of self-clinging, which is the cause of all our woes. The death of anything which stands in the way of enlightenment. And maybe that's part of the symbolism of what are called in the Buddhist tradition wrathful deities. They're often of a very dark colour, so maybe black, maybe dark blue. Unfortunately, I haven't got a figure. I couldn't find any wrathful pictures. But yes, so so black is related to more the destruction, more the destructive element of the enlightened mind, but destruction of what needs to be destructed, if that's a word. This shed a bit of light on why I like black t-shirts. So I had reflected on what maybe actually I'll go into this a bit later, but it strikes me that the colours which appeal to us may well have a spiritual significance, and certainly the black t-shirt was one of my doorways in there. How are we doing for time? Oh, Lord. Impossible to stick to time. I somehow think it's really, really difficult. Right. So when we have the groups, I'll be asking you to think about what favourite colours you have, and whether there are any particular colours which we have been talking about today, whether they got any particular resonance for you. Just see if we can notice any particular emotional resonance with particular colours. So I think we're going to need to move on to the second theme of the talk, which is mantra and mantric sound. So first of all, I'll try and say a little bit about what a mantra is. This is totally not news to a good number of you, but maybe needs to be said a little bit about it. It needs to be said. So the mantra is thought of in Buddhism as a sound symbol of an aspect of the enlightened mind. And these mantras normally relate to particular mythic deities. So Green Tara has a mantra, Vajrasattva has a mantra, Amitabha has a mantra. So all the figures will have a mantra. Milarepa, Buddha Shakyamuni, the historic Buddha, they all have mantras related to them. So they're they're represented, they're symbolized by a mantra. You could say the deity in sound form is the mantra. So we could say that mantra aims at contacting the spiritual forces which are latent in our own mind, in these depths. And these forces are ultimately aspects of the enlightened mind, which are often personified in particular figures, particular mythic figures made of light. And in the Vajrayana tradition, these forces, according to the Vajrayana, can be contacted through visualization and invocation through mantra. So both the visualization and the chanting of mantras are important as a way for building a connection with these forces of enlightenment which are latent in our own being. And the mantra sort of literally is a string of syllables in the Sanskrit language. And apparently there's 64 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet. But these mantras, importantly, are not really translatable. Mantras aren't understandable at the conceptual level. They may have some words contained in them which have a sort of a more regular meaning, but the actual meaning of a whole mantra cannot be put into words. So, for example, Green Tara has a mantra, Om Tare, Tutare, Ture, Swaha, which is basically kind of just playing with the name of mantra. Sorry, but not the name of mantra, the name of Tara. So it's just a play of the name, you could say. And probably one of the most famous mantras in the Buddhist tradition is Om Mani Padme Hung, which is the mantra of the Avalokiteshvara. And it's sometimes given a loose translation as jewel in the lotus. So as Mani is jewel and Padme is hung. So Padme isn't hung. Padme is lotus. Mani is jewel and Padma is lotus. And Om and Hung aren't really translatable, so you can't really translate the mantra, although you can point at it in some way. It's something to do with a jewel in the lotus, whatever that may mean. So yeah, mantras aren't conceptually, they're not really susceptible to conceptual or logical analysis. They're symbols, particularly symbols which relate to particular deities. Mythic and archetypal deities. So one way of thinking about the mantra is it's sort of the name of the Buddha or the Bodhisattva, in the sense that you sort of call out that name, and sooner or later they sort of turn up. Although I don't quite like the way of looking at it. My take on it is that they're actually always there, and saying the name of the deity actually makes you susceptible to their presence. Well, I prefer to look about it that way. But at some level, we might think about the mantra being the name of the deity, the name that you call, which encourages us to come into their presence, to notice their presence. And a mantra is something that is repeated. It's not something you say once. A mantra is something that's repeated over and over again. And if you don't repeat it, the energy of it will start to be lost. And something which I've noticed is that mantras can be a good doorway to ritual for some people. People might have struggled a bit with the kind of lofty words which some rituals have, but they seem to be able to engage with the non-conceptual aspect of mantra as a kind of a doorway into ritual. So I've noticed that in the past. And that was probably to some degree that was the case for me as well. How about doing some mantra chanting? I think I've given you quite a lot of stuff to take in, so I suggest that what we do for the last 7 minutes or so is that we well, I'm going to choose for you a Buddha Amitabha on the right there. So he's the Buddha figure who relates to this Maharaga, this transcendental passion, purified by an experience of reality. So he's probably one of the more appealing, particularly appealing figures in the Buddhist tradition. He relates to love and compassion. He's also very much relates to meditation. So his mudra down here is it relates to meditation. And he's sitting in a meditation posture. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to chant his mantra for 5 minutes or so. There is a tune, but I think I'm not going to do a tune today. We're just going to do a monotone version of this mantra. And his mantra is Om Amideva Hri. So Amideva is something like Amitabha, his name, but it's always the Amideva is always put in the middle of the mantra, but it's something like his name. Yes, maybe you'd like to just find yourself a comfortable posture. And we'll do a bit of mantra chanting just for 5 minutes or so. And just before we do that, need to mention the term mantric sound. So we've got mantra, which is like the words or the sound of Om Mani Padme Hum or Om Amideva Hri. But what is referred to as mantric sound is more like an internal experience. So we got the chanting, which is a more sort of external kind of thing. But mantric sound is more like the internal sound or the internal feeling, which can be evoked by mantra chanting or bearing a mantra in mind, but it's more like something which comes out of us. It's like an internal experience of the mantra, which can be provoked by the more external chanting of the mantra. But this is the bit which is actually really effective for us. It's this internal response, you could say, to the mantra internally, which we might call mantric sound, which is the really spiritually efficacious bit. So, but by chanting, we're aiming to come into contact with a more internal response to the mantra, which we might call mantric sound. And we might notice at the end of the chanting that there's somehow a feeling is still present, even though the mantra has seemed to die away. And that may be related to this phenomenon of mantric sound. So let's do chanting for 5 minutes or so. I'll take the lead and just join in when you feel comfortable to do so. Om Amideva Hri. Om Amideva Hri. Om Mami Deva Hari. Om Mami Deva Hari. Okay, let's move quietly towards the tea break.